It is an absolute blessing to watch this team perform. 41-point winners against the Bombers. Let's get into it. So before we jump into it, this video could not be possible without the help and sponsorship of Swish. Swish, if you don't know, go onto their website. You can get the ANZAC Day medalist Steele Sidebottom to send you a custom video message. Nick Dacos, the captain, Scott Pendlebury, the former captain, Josh Dacos, Jack Crisp, all the boys, and other footballers or other sports people as well, but mainly your Collingwood people. Use the code Swoop for 10% off, or use the link down below for 10% off for your mum for Mother's Day, your grandparents, your friends, an enemy. Let them get a shout out from a Collingwood player. Link down below. Code Swoop Swish. Thank you so much. Today marked 30 years of the ANZAC Day game, and what a game it was. 30 years ago, it starts with a draw, and this game was just absolutely just decisive, right? It was, at the start, it was a bit, how's it going in that second quarter, but then we just put our foot down on a rainy day, 92,000, and it was just, this Collingwood team is unlike the Collingwood team of 2022. It's unlike the Collingwood team of 2023. Definitely not 2024. It is a new era of Collingwood, right? And look, I don't want to get too ahead of myself, and I will talk about the game in a second. What it was reminding me of when I was coming home was, you remember 2010 we win the premiership, of course. 2011 we go into those games and we start putting teams away. Like, I'm talking down to the sword. How many points can we win by, sort of vibe, right? You kind of knew that we were going to win when we go in there. Now, I don't feel like we're going to win every game that we go into, but now we're seeing games where we're winning by over 40 points. We've done it for 3 consecutive games. 2 of those games against both grand finalists of last year. One of them against the premiers in Brisbane, put them away by 50 something points. And now we take Essendon to the sword. There would have been times where last year and the year before where we don't do that, and we give teams a sniff, and teams sort of come back, and then we have to sort of try a little bit more, and that's where we get all those close wins from. Now, our defensive work rate, our forward half intercepts, which we're, I think top 3 at the moment, points from turnovers, we've just added a new string to our bow, and we are now finally, I've been saying this for 6 years, we are finally putting teams to the sword. And I know probably it's not going to work all the time, but for now, that's 3 wins in a row where we're just foot on the throat, just bang, 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 bang. Teams just falling over when we get our game going. Now, like I sort of alluded to, that first quarter was just scintillating football. We were playing dry weather football in a wet weather game. And I thought, what did we kick in that first quarter? 4 or 5 goals, maybe. And I thought we should have been up by about 8 goals. Like, we were schoolyard bullies against the Bombers. They kicked 1 goal, and we were just on fire. Nick as skipper, his debut as skipper, youngest Collingwood captain in 57 years, kicks the opening goal. You couldn't script it better. And we just had all the ball, all the pressure, and we just couldn't convert. And that's been a big problem for us, in most games this year. Just couldn't convert. Then the second quarter, we get a couple of quick ones at the start, and I thought if we had just kicked 1 more goal before Essendon went on that run, we would have broken them. But then Essendon, Collingwood start fumbling a little bit. I think, to me, from where I was sitting, it kind of looked like we were just being a little bit too nonchalant about it, and someone else is going to do it. Someone else is going to chase. And we got a little bit too complacent, and that's where fumbles happen. That's where there's no communication, and that's when Essendon kicked those 4 goals in a row. We still haven't conceded 5 goals in a row. The only team to not concede 5 goals in a row so far this season, which is a testament to our defense. And even though we conceded those 4 goals, you still felt like that was Essendon's best shot. If they didn't, if they went into halftime on top, I reckon it might have been a little bit of a different story. But then Jamie that kicked that last goal in the second quarter just before halftime, and got us back and going. But there's those little patches where we can definitely learn from. And you know, we can win by 60 points and still have learnings coming from that game. And I think that one is where Fly and stuff are going to sort of see like what went wrong in this patch here. Now, like I said, wet weather football, so it was very fumbly, but what I did love was just our pressure, just in general, was just second to none. You know, Nick led the tackles. He had 7 tackles. It was the most tackles on the ground, which is, you know, people just knock him for everything, the tall poppy syndrome. But Nick was just absolutely incredible today. Josh Dacos, Steele Sidebottom as well. You know, with the pressure and all that sort of stuff, we had over 60 tackles, 11 tackles inside our forward 50, and that's all well and good. And with the wet weather, you sort of know that that's sort of going to happen. What I did like was in the centre, right? Now, we only went with Cameron with McStay chopping out, and we'll talk a little bit about McStay, and then, you know, Ned Long and Mychek chopping out a little bit later. And they obviously had Todd Goldstein, who, you know, they won the tap-outs. I think they were plus 11 in hit-outs. But if you look at the clearances, we were plus 14 in just clearances in general, but mainly from stoppage clearances, and that's where we're getting our goals from. We're becoming a really good clearance stoppage goal side, and that's incredible, right? We have, like I said at the start, we have these different strings to our bow, and we can score from clearances, or we're scoring from, you know, the differentials from turnovers in our forward half, and we're getting territory. We're becoming a territory-based team where we weren't last year, and you know, it's credit to Fly and it's credit to these coaches where they are just reinventing the wheel. And it does come down to personnel as well, because Dan Houston comes back, and even though I thought he was a little bit shaky today, his ability to be that defender that we need, that halfback that we need, and then just let Josh just do what he wants. You know, Josh had, you know, over 700 meters gained. He had 35 or 36 disposals and a bunch of marks. It's just what Dan Houston allows Josh to do is second to none, because these last couple of weeks, Josh has had to, you know, hasn't been on that offense too much. But Dan Houston frees him up, and Isaac Quaynor played a good game as well. And without Darcy Moore, I thought the defense really held up, and I thought Billy Frampton and Jeremy Howe did as best as they could against, you know, 2-meter Peter and Nate Caddy. I think Peter Wright kicked 3 goals. I think Nate Caddy might have kicked 2. Some of those were from stupid free kicks that probably shouldn't have been there, but I thought they did really well. And I said in my preview, you know, you could put Peter Wright down for 2 or 3 goals because you knew it was sort of going to happen. But I thought they really held their own without that big general of Darcy Moore down back. So when I talked earlier about the forward half intercepts and scoring off that, we won forward half intercepts 32-23, and we scored 43 points to Essendon's 19 from that. And that's why I mean that we are becoming a forward half intercept scoring team. And you just got to look at where we're getting all of our points from, that as well. And from the attacking mid as well, we scored 54 points from chains, from our attacking midfield chains. So, you know, 23, 22, we're kind of coming off that back half, and we're still sort of doing that. But mainly now, we're getting those scores from turnovers, from that elite pressure. And we talk about, the pressure pies, but that's what we are. And the pressure pies are just back, and in a different way. It's like we're reformed. We've got this new vigor inside of us, and you know, we were led by Nick Dacos today, and it's a huge game, and now we've won 6 in a row. Like, it's just, you know, it's good. It's just, look, I know last week I said the lid was off, right? And it might be, but I think it's just good seeing what we're able to do and having different plans for different teams. And this game that we played today is not the same game that we played 3 weeks ago or last week even. We're a chameleon of a team. We can adapt to whatever sort of happening. Now, with all of those positives, there were a couple of negatives, and there were a couple of guys that I do not want to put on blast, because that's not what Swoop Luke is, right? I've never put a sort of person on full blast or anything like that. Just I thought they could be a little bit better, and just some things that we can kind of work out. Now, I sat next to a guy, Mark. I hope his name was Mark. My memory is so shit out. So Mark, I'm sure it was his name. And we were just having a chat and stuff, and like what I did and stuff like that. But he did make a good point where there were times where we were becoming too Nick-centric, where someone would have the ball, give it off to Nick would get tackled, or it would be just a shit kick or something like that, where the person with the ball could have just bombed it into the forward 50, or could have just found maybe a little bit of a better option. And I know, get the ball into Nick's hands whenever you can because he's a great user of the ball. But there were times, and one time in particular, where Pendlebury had the ball running into 50, hand passed it over to Nick, who I think he either shanked the kick or he didn't do much with the kick. And it could have just been Pendle just pumping it straight into 50 at top of the goal square sort of thing. But we went to Nick and, tried to finesse it. Sometimes you just, especially in the wet weather, just push it along. So that was a good point that he brought up. Another thing that I was sort of seeing was there were, you're only as good as your bottom sort of 6 players. And there were a couple of players that probably needed to do a little bit more. I thought this would have been a perfect day for Bo McCreary. I don't have his stats up at the moment, but I thought from the eye test, he did a couple of nice things and pressure and stuff, but he didn't. I thought he was going to sort of light it up on fire like Ned Long sort of did today. So, he has to just work on it a little bit. Will Hoskin-Elliott as well, but again, role player, he was doing some nice things, scored a nice goal. Thought Patrick Lipinski was a bit hesitant going around the ball, but again, a role player, so I can see the role that he's playing. So there were a couple of players who were a little bit down, Brody Myercheck as well, that, they're probably down this week and they'll be up again next week. So it's just those little things where, like I said, you can win a game by 60 points, but those little learnings and those little improvements, you don't want to be a finished product right now. You don't want to be perfect right now. You want to be perfect in August, in September. So that's fine. I'm not too worried about that. The biggest thing I am worried about, though, is Dan McStay. Now, the injury looked so innocuous. I just thought he tripped and just maybe landed on his knee. There was no twist, no nothing. So fingers crossed that it's not an ACL injury. It looks like they reckon that it might be an MCL, which will be about 6 weeks, which is 6 to 8 weeks, which is best case scenario. But that guy can't get a good run on it. And it's just unfair and it's heartbreaking. And we'll talk about this in another video. But it looks like it could be Mason Cox's time to shine. And I'll eat my words. And this was probably a game for Mason Cox at times where we just couldn't get that ball, especially in the second and that third quarter, get that ball rolling into the forward line. But Mason Cox has got the, let's see how he does in the VFL on Saturday night. And, it's his time to shine and his time to step up. And we'll see how Membry, Cox and, not McStay, Membry, Cox and Myercheck do together. And now Darcy Cameron gets to chop out. And I know you guys love when Mason Cox is in the ruck, so we'll get to see that more often. I would like to see a Charlie West debut somewhere, maybe not against Geelong, bring Cox in for Geelong, and then see what happens there. So my thoughts are with McStay because it's absolutely heartbreaking, but fingers crossed and touching wood that it's nothing serious at all. Look, guys, that's just my post-game thoughts. It is 10 to 10. I'm going to edit this video, get it up, and then I'm going to go inside into the lounge room, chuck on the game for another replay while I'm editing, swooping around. But until then, like, comment, subscribe, tell your family, tell your friends, tell your pets, buy the merch. Until next time, double shackers. I'll swoop you later.